way back in the 1980s, you were either an Audi fan or a Lancia fan when it came to rallying. I was an Audi fan personally. However, Lancia absolutely took the rallying world by storm and came up with this beast of a car. I could go on about all the details on this car, but I'm not an anorak enough, so I've brought in James, my Lancia anorak. So James, tell me about this particular car.
This particular car, I bought it in year 2000.
Cool.
From a chap in Dagenham in Essex.
Right.
The car itself was built end of 92.
Right. And was that like the run out? Were they running them out at that point?
They were, no, they were still going strong. So these cars started in the Lancia Fiat plant, and then they finished them off in the Arbath plant. So all the decals, different coloured grille section was all put on in the Arbath plant, which they do on all their, I know it's very boring, but they do for all of the actual sort of special edition cars.
Okay.
This one was imported into the UK in 95, and I'm about its 5th, 6th owner.
We've moved to the back of the car. We were just saying, we think it looks pretty good from the back.
It does, yeah.
It's not bad actually, because this car was actually 78?
78, 79.
79 motor show, and it ran till 93?
93, yeah.
So that's a long time for this shape car. And what I love about this car is that someone in a design studio didn't care about road cars, just cared about motorsport, and went motorsport first, road car second.
Absolutely.
And then came up with this. And they've managed to like take a boxy shape, no disrespect, and just make it really, really cool.
This is a Martini 5.
Yeah.
They produced 400 of them. This is number 102.
And didn't number 115 just sell for £100,000?
Yes, it's they for the last
miles?
3 years they've been nudging that 6-figure sum. There's been, I think Walker's had one which like delivery mileage. Silverstone Auctions put one up I think last year which had about 10,000 miles. This has done about 60, so it's done a little bit more. And a couple of private companies have been nudging that 100, 110 to get interest on, because the Martini cars, of all the limited editions that Lancia did, seem to command the most respect.
Ah, okay.
And it's a hallowed colour scheme that everyone identifies with in terms of motorsport.
Absolutely, yeah, you know it straight away. So, what was particularly different on this car to maybe the other?
So basically, this is a 5. A Martini 5 is identified by black spoiler and spoiler supports. On the front shots, you've got black grills coming on there. And the Martini striping, again, a real anorak fact coming in here.
Go on.
If you look on your side, you can actually see that we're very broad at the back, going through a pencil line at the front.
Right.
When we went to the 6 actually came down to a point over each wheel arch.
Wow, that is an anorak
fact. It is a very anorak fact.
The wheels, which are cool. I mean, they look cool on any car.
They are fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah,
they are an 80s rally wheel,
absolutely.
if ever there was one.
Yeah.
Originally, the car would have had chrome rhoda alloys on it.
Right.
In 15-inch, 5-stud pattern, and they were painted white. When it was imported, it actually had these on it, so these were put on in Italy as like a period extra on it. I've actually had them restored, and we took all the wheels back, and the Oz Racing was actually painted on there. Right. But interestingly, you could actually see the shadow of where they'd done it, but it was totally out of sync. So it's either been done before and redone, or they did it, decided it wasn't great, and actually did it again. And typical Italians, rather than do a whole word and paint it on as a mask, the letters were individually put on, and the orientation was slightly to cock on every single letter. Right. So they got Italian way. And also, we've never seen this Oz logo on any of the wheels. Wow. Before. Blimey. So we copied that to try and keep it original, and actually they're in a Lancia blue to match the car as well.
Who'd have thought you could have talked that much about wheels?
I know.
The Italians like their box dashboards,
right?
They
do, don't they?
I mean, it could be any Italian car, really, like with the dashboard. But that's not why you buy the car, right?
No,
that's not
but you're sitting here and you feel like a fighter pilot.
Okay.
The dials and the knobs and the buttons and the warning lights.
And does it all work?
It does all work. There is one, well, to tell it all works, the main beam headlight little indicator doesn't work. Right. But I've never bothered to replace it.
And you've got, I mean, and anyone who's under the age of probably 25 or 30 won't recognise one of those, but that's a cassette player.
It's a cassette player.
By Philips. Oh my word.
Originally they had a Clarion one in there.
Yeah.
That was long gone, but this is a Philips little face-off.
Okay. And this must have been quite early to have Alcatraz interior.
Yes,
yes. There's many cars in the early 90s.
Yeah, no, it's full Alcatraz interior. You've got the HF logo embossed on there. You've got the red stitching
Yep.
And the perforated on the Alcantara, that was a Martini 5. When you bought the 6, you had turquoise blue, full Alcantara interior.
Wow.
A real shades job, that. But so the 6 always had the black with the red stitching and the corresponding red seat belts.
And the spanner for when it breaks,
because
it's Italian.
It's not Italian. The spanner is perfect for uncoupling the battery if you don't want anybody to nick your car.
There you go. Security facts as well. If you're buying one, top tips, what to look for?
Top tips, what to look for, it needs to be garaged.
Okay.
They had no rust proofing on them whatsoever.
So a little fact, back in the 80s and 90s, you didn't see many Lancias on the road, or Italian cars in general, because it was an afterthought about actually making sure that they lasted for one winter.
Because in Italy, to be honest, in Italy, they don't put salt on the roads. And along the continent, there's no salt on the roads. So whilst the cars were undersealed, there was no salt protection whatsoever on them.
Right, so garage. And I heard that you kind of don't want them modified, you want standard suspension.
No, you want standard suspension. Because the 79 car this was built off, there's still parts of the shell within it, and it just wasn't strong enough. I mean, that car had 80 brake, 70 brake on a little 4-pot engine.
And what's brake on this?
210.
210.
And it was only 2-wheel drive to start with. And so basically they've strengthened bits, but there's still a lot of flex in the chassis on these guys.
And what was the competition like? Was this a hot hatch? Was this considered a hot hatch?
I think it was considered a hot hatch. You know, it was a, I don't know, sort of on the Golf is its day type thing. It started as family hatch, it then went to hot hatch because they turboed it, then they 4-wheel drived it, and then it went into a rally god.
Right, right. And so its competition in the 90s would have been like the Escort Cosworth,
Audi Quattro.
Audi Quattro.
And obviously this came in after the Group B was kiboshed in '86 with Henry Toynevan unfortunately dying, and they already had this on the design go ready for it. So it was in the right place at the right time to leap straight into the Group A regs. Right.
And how many championships did they win?
They won 6 overall.
See, I can just keep asking you questions.
You can.
Tell me about the engine.
4-pot, 2-litre, turbocharged.
Okay.
Intercooler. 6-way ABS braking on there. And the all-important strut brace.
Okay. And were they quite flexy at the front?
They were very flexy. You tend to find that a lot of the rally cars, the actual roll cage came down onto the front turrets, and it was triangulated onto the dash because they just cracked basically in these 3/4 areas.
Right.
Because they just weren't strong enough.
So there you have it. What an amazing car. I remember growing up as a kid, and there used to be one of these parts in like a burgundy wine red colour. That's such a colour exists. And I remember seeing it as a kid, but it was the only Lancia that you kind of saw around because there just wasn't very many of them in the UK. And it was a great, great car, and it's stood the test of time. I mean, I actually think it's probably a better looking car now than it was even back in the late 80s. The sad thing with Lancia now, though, is that you can't actually buy a Lancia in the UK, and the ones you can buy in Italy, I don't think you'd really want to buy anyway. And it's a real shame that Lancia lost that motorsport pedigree that just ran through all their cars in the 70s and 80s that were just drivers' cars. You know, the one thing the Italians got right was every Italian car, you never see an ugly one. They all sound fantastic. They're a driver's car. Sadly, they then cut budget on maybe quality control and other things. But they built things like this, and it's just a brilliant, brilliant vehicle. Lancia, come on, build us another one. We need to go back to more of the hot hatch era when, you know, it was all about how fast they went and how quick you got there and just having fun in vehicles. And we've sort of lost that now. So, you know, we need Italian passion back. We want to feel like the guy who designed this car drawing up the spec for it. We want to have that sort of passion come back into us for our driving experience.